Hello students, welcome back to our course on visual semiotics for visual communication. In our previous few lectures, we have looked into the semiotics, the semantics, syntax, pragmatics and these various domains of semiotics which are required for visual communication, and we looked how the signs work amongst them, and through that we do certain amount of communication. We also looked at one of the psychological aspects of human perception, which was termed as Gestalt psychology or Gestalt's laws of perception. So there we looked at various forms or shapes in a visual field coming together and organizing with each other, and then finally having an impact on our perception. So we learnt about all that in few of our lectures. In today's class, we will look at a very interesting aspect of design or visual communication, where we are talking of two different aspects. One aspect is about models, the model which is created in our mind and the model which is conceptually developed. So based on that, our design domains many a times work together. So that is one area we are going to look at, is about various models, and based on that model how we design and perceive things. That is one. And the other aspect we are going to cover is termed as affordances. This is a new term perhaps you will be encountering, but we will learn about that, what affordance is, and then learn a little bit about that. So talking about the models, so we will talk about two different model here today. So one model is the mental model, so it's called the mental model, and the other model is called the conceptual model. So one, as the word suggests, one is mental, one which is happening with our mind, that is the model that we have in our mind through our experiences, and the other model is the conceptual, or based on concept that you develop. So one model is, or to put in another word, another way, is that mental model is something which is there with you, prevalent with you, or prevalent with the user or audience who is going to interact with your design, and the conceptual model is the one which the designer or creator is going to create. Okay, so we work with these two models together. So first we will have a look at what mental model is talking about. So if we look into the screen, the mental model represents a person's thought process or how something works. Mental models are based on incomplete facts, past experiences, and even intuitive perceptions. So this is what is creating mental model. So mental model is completely based on an individual's understanding of the world. So that again brings us back to the point where we are emphasizing on the interpretant. In the whole science system, the interpretant plays a very important role, where he has a particular mental model in place, and that mental model or the understanding of the world is based on his experiences. Or in other words, say you are observing a phenomena, you are observing that a plant grows up, and then the flowers appear on the plant, and then the flowers turn into fruit. So this is a phenomena that you have seen over your time frame, through experience you have seen this phenomena, and based on that you have developed a mental model about how the plants grow. So this could be incomplete fact, this could be some kind of assumption, these are based on your perceptions, but this is the understanding of the world that you have. That's your mental model, or that any person is equipped with a mental model like this, and then this mental model is applied in other factors, or he matches with this mental model and sees if something is matching with this or doesn't match with this. So, this is what mental model is in short. And how does it help? So, the mental models help shape actions and behavior, influence what people pay attention to in complicated situations, and define how people approach and solve problems. Now, it is important to understand why mental model is in place. In the last class, when we were talking about gestalts, we tried to put forward the fact that the mind doesn't really want to spend too much time on solving a problem. It wants to get to the solution very quickly and efficiently. That's the whole reason why we perceive certain things in a certain manner, and there are certain ways we perceive, right? Same thing happens for the mental model. So, here we see that it shapes our actions and behavior, it helps us take the decisions, and it defines how we are looking at the world in a very quick and compact manner. So, once the mental model is set, you next time do not spend much time on that. It relies on the mental model which is existent, and it matches with that or doesn't match with that, and take a decision based on that. So, hope this part is clear how the mental model works with all of us. We all are equipped with that and we work with it. Now comes to the question where we are moving into the conceptual model, the other one we talked about. So, a conceptual model is a representation of a system. So, this is very, very important, that a conceptual model is a representation of a system made of composition of concepts which are used to help people know, understand or simulate a subject the model represents. So, as the definition suggests, what does the conceptual model do? A conceptual model is basically presenting a system of concepts. So, there could be different concepts coming together, you are putting them together to make people understand that, to make people get a first cut view of that, and then they can make some kind of assumption or decision based on this conceptual model. Or in other words, say you are framing a poster, say you are designing a canvas, a paper, a piece of paper where you will be drawing certain amount of things. So, this is a conceptual model which you are trying to develop, where you will put together different elements. Last day we talked about creating an imagery with a sun, flower and a text. So, these are the different elements which will come together, and you are trying to put them together into a conceptual model. So, what it means, you have put different systems together, you have tried to create a model of that, and then you are presenting this concept. So, you are making a composition of this concept, and which is used to help people know, understand or simulate a subject that the model represents. So, basically you have created this to help people understand and to encounter with that. Okay. So, essentially what you are trying to do is you are creating a concept, a model of that concept, and then you are helping users to do that. So, I hope it is clear that there exists two models. One model is where you are not creating anything, the mental model gets formed automatically, and the other model is where you are creating something. So, this is called the conceptual model, and hence you are presenting it to the user. Now, as you can understand, there could be a overlap between these two models. Say you are showing the life cycle of a plant. We have given the example of a mental model of a how plant grows, or the what are the stages a plant encounters. It grows, then the flower appears, then the fruit appears. Now, this is the mental model you have got, and you are now representing the same thing conceptually, maybe in an animation or in a drawing, in a diagram, something like that. And if this representation doesn't match with the mental model, people may have a difficulty in understanding. There could be various errors arising out of it if there is a discrepancy, incongruency between the mental model and a conceptual model. So, from that perspective, this is very, very important to understand how the mental model and the conceptual model works, and it is very important in terms, as you can understand, when it comes to making meaning out of the visuals that we are encountering. So, now we will go further in what are the challenges of matching the mental model and the conceptual model. So, we talked about that there could exist some kind of discrepancy if the mental model and the conceptual model is not matching. So, it is pretty much easy to understand how this discrepancy might encounter. So, whenever you are designing, always pay attention to the mental model of the users, what kind of mental model they are equipped with, and what is the conceptual model presenting, and hence you can mitigate some of these challenges. But nevertheless, you should always remember what are the challenges. So, the first challenge is if the product's conceptual model does not match with the user's mental model, then the user will find the product hard to learn and use. So, say you have a product, say this is a product, right. So, or it could be anything for that matter, it could be a visual product, it could be a tangible product like this, and if the conceptual model of this particular product does not match with the mental model. So, the user really do not understand that this is a pen and it has to be used in a certain fashion. So, there is a mismatch between the conceptual model and the mental model that the user has. The user will take a longer time to learn. So, it is pretty much simple to understand. So, if you do not realize this does not match with your mental model of how a pen is, so you are designing a pen which looks very different, the user will take longer time to learn and then use it. So, there will be a lag which will come into picture. The second one is if the designer of the conceptual model did not take the user's mental model into account, then it is highly likely that the product will be hard to learn and use. What that mean is, whenever you are spending some time on your design, always pay attention to the mental model of the user. So, that is the reason why many a times when the design is encountered, we do user profiling. So, we will talk about user profiling in one of the later lectures, but what is meant over here is you try to analyze who the user of your product is. Mind it, when I say product could be a lifestyle product, it could be a equipment, it could be an industrial product, it could be a furniture, it could be a poster, it could be a graphic, it could be a film, it could be an audio visual, it could be anything. So, any product communicates with the user in certain fashion, and this communication must take into consideration of the user's mental model. So, whenever you are designing the conceptual model, that conceptual model should have a mapping with the user's mental model. It is always safe to design it in that fashion. Okay. Now, coming to the third challenge, if there are multiple user groups. So, many a times it may happen for a particular object that you are designing, or the particular thing that you are designing, that will have multiple user groups, and that multiple user group might have multiple exposure to different products and might have multiple mental model. Say for example, you are developing interface for reading a book. So, you have conventional book reading, you have book reading on a tablet, you have book reading on other devices, and now you are coming up with a newer visual communication mode or an interface or a graphical user interface, GUI as it called. So, you are coming up with a conceptual model of that. So, here you may have different user groups. Some groups might have only read physical conventional books. Some group have read books, at the same time have used iPad or any other tablet PC for their reading purpose. Some other group have never used conventional books and only used on digital medium. So you can have different groups, and definitely they will have a different mental model about reading. So, and now the challenge comes that you have to take into consideration the mental models of many of these groups and combine them together for a maximum impact model. Okay. So, and the conceptual model is designed to match just one mental model, then the other users will find the device hard to learn and use. So, if you are only considering one user group and one user mental model, for this there will be very much difficulty for other users group to learn and master it. This is pretty much simple. So, you have to look at all and then come to a unified solution. There is some more challenges. So, if the conceptual model was not really designed, but it is just a reflection of underlying hardware, software or database or many other ingredients coming together, then the conceptual model will not match the user's mental model very well, and the user will find the device hard to learn and use. What it essentially means is a design should not be by chance. Okay. Many a times in our world around us, we encounter products which have been designed by chance of putting together hardware, software or all other equipments that goes in together. All of them are brought together and the product is formed, and you are there to use the product visually or tangibly, whichever form it is. But the idea here is, if you do that, it is never taking into consideration how an user is equipped to look at that product, what kind of mental model he has got. Maybe he has got a completely different mental model of reading a book, and you have put together best of the hardware, software, everything together, and you have come up with a reading equipment, but the user doesn't even realize what is this. He can't map with the mental model, and hence it will get difficult. So, this is the idea where we have to merge this together. Okay. This subject relies on that for your future applications, and sometimes that the mental model of one or more user groups will not fit the conceptual model, and you want to change the user's mental model so it matches the conceptual model you have designed. So, this is another very important situation which may arise. Many a times that you have 3 different user group and you cannot really match to their mental model. It may happen many a times that you cannot match to their mental model. The conceptual model that you are designing is not meant for certain user groups. Their mental model is not equipped that way. So, in that cases, what we do is at least have a training program incorporated with that. You aid the user to learn that and then uplift their mental model so that it matches with your conceptual model. So, this is what you must have encountered in many of the web applications or computer applications. The first time you see a tutorial, a video, or it navigates you step by step how different things are used. So, what it is essentially doing is, you might not have the correct mental model to match with the conceptual model of the product, but by these means of video and other kind of aids, your mental model is now equipped to face the conceptual model. So, there could be various challenges. Certain things have to be kept in mind, certain things have to be incorporated within the design, and hence you approach your visual communication design. So, this more or less takes us to the conceptual model, and so we come back here again to this particular diagram just to explain how the mental model and conceptual model is working when we are talking about semiotics. So, we have an object over here and we have the interpretant who has a knowledge of that object. So, this is where your mental model is very, very prevalent. So, we have a very strong mental model acting over here, and then the object is being represented by some kind of sign vehicle. This is the signifier that we have got, that has got an expression, and that again is being perceived by the interpretant. So, this part, this particular area is to deal with the conceptual model, or rather this particular portion has been designed with a conceptual model in mind, so that the mental model of the object that the user has matches with the conceptual model of the signifier and the representation and the expression which the designer is crafting, that matches with this mental model. So, this is how this particular diagram also comes into relevance when it comes to the mental model and the conceptual model together. So, now we move on to another aspect which we talk about affordance, and affordance is a term which is coined only in the 20th century by the the Gibson, who is very well known for his book on visual perception. So, there he first coined the term affordance, and later we find again the mention of affordance by Donald Norman, who is author of a very famous book which all of you should read if you are interested in visual communication, semantics, or product design from a semiotic perspective. It's called The Design of the Everyday, the Psychology of Everyday Things. So, basically Gibson in his book The Ecological Approach to Visual Perception coined this term affordance, and then the concept was introduced by Donald Norman again when he was talking about this book of everyday things, when he was mentioning the human computer interface. So, basically the affordance, this word affordance means that certain clue in an object, certain clue in our visual field which makes us use an object in a particular fashion. So, say for example, if I show you this pen is an object, and this is giving you an affordance of holding it. So, you hold it this way, or you know the cap, you know that it has to be pulled to set apart. So, there are certain clue which this particular object is giving you for this to be used in a particular fashion. So, in short, that is what is affordance of this particular object, or various parts of this object which gives you that kind of a clue, and hence you use that. So, let us look at the more robust definition of by Donald Norman. So, the term affordance refers to the perceived and actual properties of a thing, primarily those fundamental properties that determine just how the thing could possibly be used. So, affordances provide strong clues for operation of the thing. So, as just I have explained about this particular pen, the affordance is nothing but the actual things which are here. So, there are two things which Norman mentioned, is the actual and the perceived thing clue that this object provides. So, the actual clues are, say, this particular cap, and this has a disjointed area. So, you know that this has to be pulled apart, or maybe it has a small clip. So, you know that the clip could be utilized and hung it, you can hang it somewhere. So, these are various clues that this object are giving, which are the actual clue, and the other one is the perceived clue, which actually perhaps the object is not giving, but you are getting a perception that okay, this pen might be used for something else. You can use it as a tool for poking something, or turn something. So, this is a perceptual use which you are getting from this particular object. So, you have an actual and a perceptual, both kind of clue which are coming out from it, and hence you use that object. So, as you can understand from a visual semiotic perspective, when you are creating a visual communication or the environment is interacting with you, we are picking up these clues all the time from the surrounding objects, from the surrounding environment, and based on these affordances we are doing the operations with them. So, if you look at a flower, you feel like plucking it. So, that is the affordance of a flower. So, that is the visual communication which happens when you look at a flower, and that is the affordance it has given, or you feel like touching a flower, or if you feel like going close to a flower. So, these are certain qualities, actual and perceived qualities, which the flower is providing to you, and based on that you take some actions based on that. So, now affordance is something which is both actual and perceived. So, I have given you an example of this ball, and what is happening when we are looking at this ball, the actual affordances are the texture of the ball, the shape of the ball, the bounceability of a ball. So, these are the actual physical characteristics which are coming to you as an affordance. At the other hand, you have the perceived affordances in which you are perceiving how this ball could be perhaps used. It could be held, it could be thrown, owing to some of the perceived affordances that you are having. So, one is the actual one. Say if you look at this image, so one is the actual affordance, whatever. So, you have this lustrous, shiny surface of the ball. You can get a feeling of the material, the bounceability of the ball. So, these are the actual perceived actual properties that you get, and the other is the perceived property. So, you know that if the ball is thrown, probably it will bounce back. So, this is something you are imagining, you are assuming as a perception and coming to the affordance. Finally, you are arriving at the affordance of this particular object, and hence that will relate to its operation. So, one of the very common examples I give for affordances is many a time when you look at a door. Okay. So, when you look at a door and you have a knob on that, or you have a handle on that, what affordance does a handle give? Does it give an affordance of pulling the door or pushing the door? So, many a times you will see that even after giving the handle, it says pull the door. It is not required. When you have a handle, it is the affordance is that you will pull it towards you. It does not give you the affordance of pushing it. So, pushing it could be just a plate on the door. You can have a metal plate on the door, which gives you the affordance to push only. You can, even if you want, you cannot pull that, a metal plate on the door. So, this is what an affordance does, and that helps user to create much more efficient design. So, I have given you an example of a product, but this can extend up to your visual communication modes also, which gives you only one clue how that is to be seen and perceived. So, there are two distinct school of thoughts when it comes to affordances. We have the Gibson's criteria of affordances, and we have the Norman's criteria of affordances. These are pretty simple to understand. Gibson gives action possibilities in environment in relation to the action capabilities of the actor, whereas for Norman, perceived properties that may not actually exist. So, many a times the perceived property may not at all exist for according to Norman, but you may have some actual affordances, whereas Gibson is suggesting that it is related to the capability of the actor. What the capability of the actor is, based on that you have the action possibilities, whereas Norman is suggesting that perceived properties that may not actually exist at all. So, there could be only actual properties present. Gibson is suggesting independent of actors' experience, knowledge, culture and ability to perceive. So, this is more of bottoms up approach, where we talked about. Gibson is suggesting this, just looking at it, whatever stimuli is coming, based on that you take some action. It has nothing to do with your past experience or culture, that whereas Norman suggests suggestions and clues as how to use the properties. So, mostly it is to do with the property aspect of it, and it can be dependent on experience, culture and of the actor. So, here the perceived property many a times is dependent on the culture and activities, and existence is binary. So, either you have affordance or you do not have affordance. That is what Gibson is suggesting, whereas for Norman, affordances can make an action difficult or easy. So, for Gibson, affordance is either present or not present, there cannot be duality in that, whereas for Norman it is saying that affordances make it difficult or easy. There is a gradient between affordances. Okay. So, this is the basic differences between the Gibson school and the Norman school. Now we come to different types of affordances. We have based on affordance and perceptual information. This was developed by Gavard in 1991. So it is pretty much simple to understand. So you have affordance in this axis. One option could be there are no affordances and there is affordance. Another is there is perceptual information, yes or no. So when we have, let's take the case of there is no affordance and no perceptual information, you go for a rejection. You do not use that. This is a case where there is no affordances and no perceptual clue. So you really do not accept that. That's a rejection. Okay, but let's take us an example where there is perceptual information but no affordance. So let's take an example of a chair. You see a chair, you are getting a perceptual information about a chair, but maybe this chair is made out of paper. Okay, it's just a model of a chair, but you are getting some kind of perceptual information, but the affordance is not there to sit on the chair. Maybe the thickness is very thin. Looking at the material, the actual properties, looking at it, you are not getting an affordance. So this is creating a false affordance. So this is a case of false affordance where it is a false affordance. If you rely on that, you will encounter into a problem. Whereas hidden affordance appears when there is affordance but there is no perceptual information. Say for example, you have a door. So you have a wall and you have a door there. So you have an affordance which is present. You can make out that it's a door, but you perception wise you cannot make out. Maybe it's a glass door on a glass wall. So there is a small hint of affordance somewhere. Maybe there's a line all around it by which you can think of there's a door there. It is giving you some kind of affordance, but there is no clear perceptual information. So false door is a good example where you are getting a hidden affordance. So the affordance is there but it is hidden. And the ideal case is where you have perceptual information and you have affordance. So this is a perceptible affordance and perceived or apparent affordances. So you should always go for a perceptual and available affordance situation and not encounter into false affordance or hidden affordance. That will lead into confusion. So these are different kind of affordances which could be present, and in your design you should always take into consideration what is perceptually prevalent and what affordances you are presenting. So that brings us to the end of understanding mental model, conceptual model and affordance together. Thank you.